Nowadays, most video games function on PBR systems, physics-based rendering. It is when you rely on real-life principles of lighting and physics to render your graphics. That is where all the fancy-schmancy normal maps, height maps, specular and metallic maps come in, to imply geometry where there is none, or to make materials react properly to light. It is almost as if there's no place for the good old simple times of vertex lighting and hand-painted textures. Except that there is, at the very least in the indie space. There is a difference between letting the engine paint light based on your light sources and putting lights yourself. There is more deliberation, more choice, more vision involved. Unity has all of its materials divided into two categories: lit and unlit. Lit shaders work off of PBR principle. Unlit shaders don't work with any kind of lights at all. If you were to go for some sort of a retro-inspired middle ground, you'd have to put extra work in. That's where shader graph and shader scripts come in. Back in the day, I was messing around with vertex painting, trying to paint light and shadow directly onto the terrain. There was a problem with how to portray both light and shadow in a single layer. In other words, the mathematics of light and dark. The idea was to have pitch black darkness at 0 color, base true colors of the texture at 0.5, and pure whiteness, maximum brightness, at 1.0. That is not how light works by default. You usually get unchanged texture color at pure white ambient light, and can only go down into darkness from there. Additional light sources do the opposite. They increase the brightness of a texture based on the intensity and the color of the light. For my purposes, I specifically needed the true color to show at 0.5, at mid-gray light, regardless of whether this light comes from the ambient, from the sun, or from dynamic light sources. This could, in theory, be achieved with a blending mode called overlay. I often used it for light and shadow layers in my drawing process. There was a problem with it. If the base texture had too dark or too bright spots, they would get burned. It was back then when I found out about a double multiply approach. This formula allowed to correctly draw shadows, and it also gave some pretty good lights, even though it wasn't too bright at its maximum. The good news is that you could use double multiply with HDR colors and therefore change how bright you want your brights to be with the use of intensity parameter. Of course, this was only a half measure that I settled for at the moment. Skip forward a couple of months and I'm back, yearning for my own custom lighting logic that I don't know how to do at all. Following a tutorial series that mysteriously stops midway when the author vanishes from existence 2 years ago, I have cobbled a simple bare-bones shader in which I could insert any light formula to see how it works. This is where the real fun began. And by fun I do not mean fun in the slightest. I thought to myself that making the color gradient go from pure black to pure white would be a logical thing to do. Double multiply doesn't do that, so I tried to split the formula into two parts. Double multiply for values below 0.5 and screen for values above 0.5. At that time I didn't realize this is exactly how hardlight works. It separates the formula into below and above 0.5 and uses multiply for one and screen for another. It all looked fine and dandy until I noticed something. A sharp jump from an OK light progression to this washed out terrible mess of a color. The thing is, I expected the formula to give this blend look. What I did not expect was that this jump happened not at level 0.5, but at 0.735-ish. What? Now, I could probably understand the jump at 0.75, even though it would still be insane, but at 0.735-ish? I can't even begin to fathom what is so special about this number. It should work around the value of 0.5. Below is darker, above is brighter. What the hell is happening at 0.735? What? I put the formula and the numbers into a spreadsheet and stared at it like a moron for an hour. Nothing was out of the ordinary. I don't see the jump. I don't see the issue. But it is there. Look at it. It is right there. 0.735 brightness. Maybe there is some unexpected behavior with double multiply and screen that makes this sharp turn at around 0.735. Maybe all of this multiplication gives some kind of anomaly that I cannot predict. But the math is correct. There is and can be nothing wrong with it. After some poking, I discover that it's not just the screen formula. It's any Blend formula. Alright, so if math isn't the problem, then what the hell is? Is Unity renderer clamping colors above certain values? Is it stupid? Am I stupid? After some time spent beating my head against the metaphorical wall, I asked ChatGPT, and this is what it came up with.
Your overlay color value isn't in linear space. It's likely in gamma or sRGB space. In sRGB, which is gamma encoded, a value like 0.735 actually maps to around 0.5 in linear space. So what you're seeing in Unity, and in HLSL if you're sampling an sRGB texture, are color values that are perceptually uniform, not mathematically linear.
Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Long story short, we usually view digital images in sRGB space. Our browsers work in sRGB, monitors work in sRGB, most of everything digital is in sRGB. However, when you're doing math, literally multiplying and adding colors, it is instead done in linear space. The result won't be mathematically correct if you multiply one color in linear and one in sRGB. That is why you must bring it back into linear space and do your calculation there, or bring both into sRGB space or whatever. You just can't multiply colors in different color spaces. Remember how Dr. Manhattan put the hydrogen sign on his big blue dumb forehead? I would have put 2.2 on mine after all this shit. In the ancient times, when TV screens bombarded children with radiation waves for watching cartoons, people found out that in digital representation of colors there are too few blacks and too many whites. They called this phenomenon crushed blacks. This was a poor state of affairs. Our human perception works in such a way that we perceive more shades of dark than of bright. All of this white information is lost on us because our eyes cannot distinguish these bright values as effectively as dark values. So, the wise ancients of HP and Microsoft gathered around in the forgotten era of 1996 and decided they shall uncrush the blacks, and thus came the equation to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. I adjust my formula with this new information in mind, and sure as hell, it works. It really bloody does work. Getting back to blending modes, both screen and multiply act as a flat gradient to white and black respectively. I don't know about you, but here's what I think. This works just fine with black and multiply. It looks natural, like the object is being submerged into darkness. It, however, does not work with screen and white. It looks horrible, so I throw the screen out. On the other hand, there is a mode called Vivid Light, which gives a desired look above 0.5. But I don't like how it burns the shadows when you go below 0.5. So, what I can do is make a Frankenstein out of Vivid Light and hard light. I can take color dodge for above 0.5 and multiply for below 0.5. I had to find this combination through trial and error. I don't know if anyone ever did this, but in case I'm the first, I'm naming this bastard myself. Let's call it border light. No, limit light. Because it reaches both white and dark limits in a natural-like way, as a light would. Yeah, why not? Limit light. I copyright this shit. No, I mean, I don't know if that's a thing. The next thing to do is to somehow make a shader that hijacks Unity's lighting system but calculates resulting light with this formula in mind. If anyone knows some good HLSL tutorials for Unity 6000, be my guest, post them in the comments. To summarize, what did we learn? Humans see more shades of black than of white. Doing math with colors in different color spaces is a bad idea. 2.2 and 0.4545 are coefficients for converting between sRGB and linear color spaces. Multiply is good for shadows. Color dodge is good for lights. I do not like Bill Gates. There you go, folks. The mystery of 0735 is solved, and I am left a little less sane for it. Tune into the next episode of my shader writing journey when I try to hijack Unity's lighting system to work with this new formula. It is coming sometime in the future, probably.